My name is Thomas Heatherwick. I didn't really care about desks before. I wasn't spending much time at a desk. And so this time, when, like everyone else, we were working from home, I got to sit at a desk by myself for 8-9 hours a day. I haven't sat at a desk like that since I was a teenager doing exams. And so with this project, we just thought about how do you make something that really gives you something other than the hard, always human-made rigidity of most spaces we work in. We saw this as an interesting moment in history. So this is the back. It's like the end of a loaf, it's like I don't eat the crust. This is the back of the bus, and so this part and the key aspects of the brief with the bus were to make a bus that uses 40% less energy than the existing main diesel buses that you see, and also to improve the reliability. So the romantic bus that people love and think of at London has one door. And that means that you're waiting for all the passengers to unload before the passengers at a bus stop can then load up. So if there's a lot of people, that can take a long time. If there's a few people, it's quick. And it means that the timetable is very unreliable. So having 3 doors and 2 staircases means that you can load and unload so much faster, which means a bus is more likely to meet the schedule. You feel your back stretching, your legs up, you get a different perspective on the world and then come back round. Normally somebody gets terrified of going all the way around and then realising that they can. There's a sort of art to doing it. There was no intention to design a chair. We have all sorts of experiments and tests we've tried, many of which go absolutely nowhere. But the occasional times where things really come together, that moment is exhilarating. The brief for the vessel came about from a new space being created above railway lines with an area equivalent to Trafalgar Square, and a sense from the people making this new quarter of New York that there should be some focal, could you make something amazing that people touch and use instead of things that they just look at and clap their hand and admire? A proposition. Was there a geometry you could make that you could sit on and be comfortable in? Because if you could, you would be breaking down the typical seat, back, arm, front legs, back legs, which are all the ingredients you're used to seeing. The studio has at its heart a workshop, so the environment we work in has lots of examples of materials and techniques, forms and textures, and sort of experiential qualities of materials. We try and test from multiple viewpoints, and often that means we then have to shift and readapt. So you'll then distill it back to the essence of that idea. So we were using clay and plywood to try different geometries, and then gradually there emerged something that did seem to work. And then also just thinking, well, the bus that people are romantically love about London, you can't get a wheelchair on. Or the design of modern baby buggies and things like that. So it seemed that there are different needs now, 50 years later, and trying to manifest them in a bus. And in many ways, buses have degraded in experience, and the only requirement that London's Transport Authority has had for so long has been double-decker, make it red. Other than that, different operators, because they're not owned by London's Transport Authority, have been able to say, oh, I like purple with yellow spots. All fabric's purple with yellow spots. And just all the accumulation of things that have not had a design team in place to recalibrate and just say, okay, you want a chiller, but maybe we don't just put that big lump of chiller above the stairs, blocking everyone's view, with a mysterious fiberglass lump, and so it's in a way it's been a bit like sort of national service, where the breakdown between home and the workplace has started to properly hybridize. It was a process of deciding where to focus and really put your imagination into what the scenarios were, which normally you would be there working together with the craftsmen, and instead we were working remotely. My team are fantastic, and Sean's team at Benchmark are really incredible. We're sitting here I'm surrounded by amazing craftsmanship. It's quite scary seeing something that you've worked on and never had a chance to pre-review before it goes on show to the public. And The process instead has relied on a huge amount of communication backwards and forwards. And this idea emerged, influenced in part by some stunning images we found of these stepwells that exist in India, in Rajasthan, which were a way that people could get down to water, and we wondered whether you could create, in a sense, an amphitheatre for people that brought people together.
We had to work very closely with the engineers. This thing, the structure of it is closer to a bridge than it is a building. And the engineering would ideally have columns and straight lines, but we actually have no elements of those, and that's what meant that we had to develop this interlayer, which was the spine element that runs up between the soffits. And we found Chimolite, who are based in northern Italy. So rather than handing over a bunch of documents and saying, can you build this? We brought them on board and they worked with us closely on developing the details.
We approached Magis. We sent some images of our prototype. They responded immediately. They have really good vision to be able to spot when something will work. You stand it upright and it doesn't look like a chair at all. It's a confusing object. It only becomes a chair when you incline it. The detailing that we put into the surface, a bit like a vinyl record, has those fine ridges, because that then meant you wouldn't slide out of it. But it also meant you get all these lines of light catching. It felt like our job is to just try to bring together all those European directives and best practice issues and bring them together and make it not feel that it's a collection of compromises. That's what we tried to do. But what you're looking at here, one of the main aesthetic aspects of it is that from the outside, the bigger thing is that the bus has these two staircases, and the thing that the Mayor of London really wanted was an open platform again, so you could kill yourself again and jump on and off as in the old days. But the point being, you're not a prisoner in the bus. When the bus is 3 metres away from a bus stop, you're not there caught, frustrated. You can get on and off. So it seemed that as we needed a staircase at the back and at the front, the meanest bit is going up through a plastic tube to upstairs and downstairs, and it seemed, well, you could get the best view of London as you circulate. And in architecture, there have been the buildings often express the functionality on the outside of how they work internally. I enjoy when people try the chair, but very honestly, we hadn't really thought that we were making such a funny, different, playful form of rocking. You want to make out that everything's deliberate, but there are lovely things sometimes which are a surprise.